I guess, let me see where we are at. So Kyle, do you want to, have us wait until your IT comes in, or do you want to talk over the phone?
Let's give them like 1 or 2 more minutes, because theoretically they are coming.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe we want to have me present last to give them a chance to come over here.
Okay. Let me, so everyone else should be able to hear me. And I'm just going to go ahead and put up, let me see if I can do this. So I appreciate everyone's patience because this is the first time we've used this besides our little tests, and of course tests always go perfectly. So I think that if I can find, I'm trying to find my, oh, there we are. Okay. So webinar, there, and there, and that goes down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. This is Laurel Lukashevsky. I'm the Executive Director of USJETAA, and thank you all for being here today. We're really excited about this program. This is the first webinar, and it's also our first time using the WebEx, so I apologize for any funky little glitches that we might have, but we're really excited about being able to do this. And today's presentation is going to be, we have Kyle Munn in North Carolina, who's going to speak about engaging family-oriented alumni. She's going to actually speak after my presentation just because there were some technical issues on her end. I'm going to present for Jessica Livingston and Adam Lisbon, who are both JETAA Rocky Mountain, and they provided us with a wonderful PowerPoint. So I wanted to quickly give you guys, and hopefully you can all see my screen. It's cluttered. But I wanted to show you this is our agenda for today, and me on behalf of Jessica and Adam. But let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get started. This webinar series is being supported by Claire and CGP. Oh, okay. So there may be some little glitches with audio and stuff like that, so I apologize. Text me if you put on hours. So I wanted to go ahead and get started. This PowerPoint was created by Jessica Livingston and Adam Lisbon, and the idea, they touched on a couple of topics, and the first one, of course, is getting geographically detached JET alumni involved. And what they suggest is that you really try to connect with people pre-departure, and you know, reminding people, even if they're just going on JET, that it's something that you can continue being connected with. And this idea of instilling a sense of value in this JETAA network. And I think that all of these, you know, all of these different points that they make really helps to establish a deep base of alumni, and it really does allow us to, you know, to stay connected even after many, many years.
Sarah the email, and then maybe Sarah can update some of that to the listener and
to create the JETAA departure, a couple of suggestions, and you know, it's of course, you know, working with the consulate and embassy, you know, to assist. I think most JET alumni are involved with assisting, you know, in the preparations for either interviewing or doing things, but it's also a matter of, you know, and if you want to, if anyone's listening, could you mute your mics if you're not talking, because that way we don't have the background noise. So anyway, to continue, alumni, you know, should support and assist departing JETs, and I think a lot of us agree that that's like one of the most about new JETs. Both happy hours, you know, Q&A sessions, departure orientation, which I know are involved with, info sessions. I recently saw, you know, a bunch of alumni going around to colleges to speak with JETs. And this was an interesting one that I had never considered, which was using chapter funds to pay for a support suite at hotels for departing JETs. And I think that's just a great idea if you have extra CLARE money to do that, you know, accompanying them to the airport. And I think that all of us can provide a lot of answers to questions that for people that are going on to the program. But because chapters and USJETAA, we don't receive information about the JETs. You know, when they come back, we don't know who's coming back, and often CLARE and MOFA, they can't share that information due to different privacy issues and whatever. So if you can give people that information before they leave on JET, it's a good opportunity. It's also a way to keep in touch with them while they're in Japan if they happen to know what their Japan address will be as well. Of course, their email address, where they're going to be on JET. A lot of times that information actually doesn't trickle down either. Whether they're an ALT or CI, they are effectively getting this one. Once departure orientation, because everyone has to be there. You know, I think like having this, you know, a form that people can leave their information is a good idea. And I think the point that the Genki JETs are the ones that will take on leadership roles in the future. You know, you want to get them when you can. So once again, using a tablet for Google Form or MailChimp is an opportunity as well. And utilizing things like MailChimp. And pre-departure events, once again, taking advantage of that. And I just want to let everyone know, I'm going to post this PowerPoint on the USJETAA website, so you'll have access to it. And we're also recording the session, so we'll be able to, you guys will have access to the full session as well. Contact information, so that you have the information, what are you going to do with it, and how can you utilize it to stay in touch with everyone. They suggest strategic contact 2 to 3 times a year, a week after they depart, in January before they recontract. And sometimes it's nice, especially in January, if you do have a couple of people that you're in touch with, to reach out to them, because you know how lonely and cold that first winter is, and they might really appreciate it and remember you. And really do to find out whether people are coming back, you know, and engaging them before they come back and before they're dealing with reverse culture shock and, you know, meeting up with people that they haven't seen in a couple of years. JET's motivating JETs to be active alumni. You know, JETAA should be an extension of JET. And it does, you know, initially when people come back, they want support, but I think a lot of JETs that have been back for a number of years, they actually want to give back to the community. They want to get people engaged with Japan. They want to share their experiences. So the first that they suggest is support for reverse culture shock, nomikai, and connecting via your JET experience. You know, career advice, establishing a professional identity. You know, it's amazing how important that network of alumni can be, especially in the job search, and not just when you first get back. You know, helping prepare the next class of JETs, whether you're speaking with, you know, potential JETs at a college or in high schools. You know, reminding people about the opportunity. For 10+ JETs, events that share the love of Japan with families, and Kyle's going to speak more closely to this. You know, serving the community in a meaningful way. So there are lots and lots of volunteer projects. I know in DC they do, you know, a tidal basin cleaning. They've gone to a number of parks and to help out. And then something in a mentoring capacity to the chapter. And, you know, a lot of 10+ JETs, they want to be involved and, you know, to remind, you know, to reconnect. JETAA DC just had a 10+ event that had over 20 people. And I met a whole bunch of new JETs that were in Japan not long after I was there, and we reconnected. So that was really fun. And to people, if they have skills and they want to share them, you know, find out who were in leadership positions and see if they want to continue. You know, JETs that seek out your JETAA chapter are your next leaders. I think that's a really important point. And for chapter reps, you know, coming up with a strategic plan helps people know what their roles can be, and it's an encouraging way. And I think that, you know, having a board retreat weekend is a very good idea. We're actually going to do that with the USJETAA board this coming weekend. Big issue, I think, is the geographically detached alumni. I think all of the chapters have alumni who, you know, are hours away from wherever their main hub of activity is. And so I think that these are a few tools that Adam and Jessica came up with. You know, letting people know that they were on JET and letting them know that they're involved with JETAA when being involved with other local Japanese events and organizations. You know, becoming involved in the local Japanese community. Most communities, whether they have a JETAA chapter or not, they do have, you know, either Asian themed festivals or Japanese festivals, or just also the local community college may have Japanese language. So, and certainly sister city organizations across the country. And then using these different events to promote the JET program, and then, you know, meet people that are interested in the JET program and who are interested in becoming JETs, because ultimately they'll end up becoming JET alumni. So also wanting to offer tools and opportunities for alumni who aren't, you know, who are involved. I mean, this is one of the reasons we're doing the webinar series, is that this way we can attract people, and we're hoping to continue the series on so that we can get people involved that might not necessarily be able to come to a city, but it's a good way to still connect with people. You know, support alumni who are really interested in becoming involved, even if they're not in your chapter, and, you know, however you can have them involved. A lot of times that could be like writing the newsletter, or taking care of the web, the website. You know, and reaching out to people and letting them know that you haven't forgotten about them. And I think sometimes having a big event sometimes draws people in, especially if it's something fun or unique. And then, of course, this is a really everything always work, and you know, connecting with people is a really important thing. So this is an opportunity, sort of a good reminder that, you know, getting to know people personally keeps them engaged. You know, if you're able to follow up with people when they initially reach out to you, that's really helpful, and it creates a connection. And then the next time you see them, it forms a stronger bond. And keeping your information updated, you know, that's one of the things that's important for chapters, is also something we're trying to do on the national level with the directory on the USJETAA site. So anyone listening that hasn't registered with the directory, we're still learning how to do all of this too, so it's a good reminder, you know, how to keep involved and how to keep in touch with people. You know, documenting activities and sharing experience. It's so fun just to see what everyone's doing, like on Facebook and Twitter, and seeing people's images. I think that attracts people to become involved with chapters as well, when they see that real people are doing real things. And once again, you know, showing people that there are real people behind all of this. I think it's steps, balancing careers and families, you know, understanding that everyone is busy and everyone has full calendars, but you want to work with it, not in competition with it. You know, if you are able to provide social spaces that includes either families or, you know, individuals that with different interests, it's a, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be Japan focused. It can be a ski trip, it can be a camping trip, it can, you know, be a professional development day. You know, people are willing to give, you know, be involved and give back, but they need to find ways to connect themselves personally so that they want to be engaged. You know, creating SurveyMonkey is a really good tool. It allows people to, you know, find out who is doing what in their areas. I think that so often you don't know where, you know, people's professional lives are, and finding out this information, finding out whether they have kids and what age ranges, you know, that's really helpful too, because then you're able to better connect. Social media, keep moving. And of course, all of them, you know, anything else that you can think of, because you're going to reach different people via different platforms. And using analytics to reach out. I need to do that. I don't really know how. And using some of your funding to promote, you know, events through Facebook and LinkedIn. So these are that question and answer session. It's, you know, they think that it would be useful to know from the 10+ jets, you know, like what motivates you to stay involved. Why did you, you know, why did you come to the luncheon that they had, you know, last weekend? Currently, how are people staying connected to Japan and their Japan experience? What pre-departure advice efforts brought Jet back to JETAA upon returning home? And, you know, what should people be pushing? And I think each area may have a different answer for that. What are the best strategies for making in touch? Certainly technology to consider that. Advice is do not give up. Hope that's useful. We'll have some time at the end for any questions, and hopefully I can answer on your behalf. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and so you don't have to look at my desktop. And then I'm going to move over to Kyle. Are you ready for us?
Yeah, I switched to using my cell phone. So can you hear me now?
I can. I'm going to pass the ball to you. But if you're on the cell phone, are you able to present your slide? Okay, cool. I'm going to pass the ball over to you then.
Great.
Oops, Kate, that went to you, sorry. Let me do this again. Come here. Here we are.
All right, and then do I have control over the screen?
You should, I think so.
So can you see what I just pulled up? Is that a yes or a no?
I can't.
Okay, yeah, you'll probably have to do share screen with me. That option's not popping up for me, so you'll have to do it from your end.
Okay, let me, okay, let me, I need
Does
to.
that just work? Do you see it now?
Oh wait, yes, I do.
Excellent. Okay, so let me start my slideshow. So to start, my name is Kyle Munn, and I was a JET in Shiga Prefecture from 2006 to 2010, and now I head up the North Carolina subchapter of JETAA Southeast, and I'm going to talk to you guys about getting more families to show up to your JETAA stuff. I have a 4-year-old myself, so this is something that I am keenly interested in seeing other JETAA chapters do. And you may want to do this just because you want to connect with more of your JET alumni, which is always a great goal, or maybe you're finding that you're not really getting a response from mid-career JET alumni because they have kids and families and aren't interested in going to happy hours and some of the stuff that younger JET alumni are more interested in. So this is a very common scenario that I have seen with JET alumni family events. Somebody decides, I have a great idea. Why don't we do a roller rink party? Kids love going roller skating. This will be the best thing ever. So you find a place and you send out an invite to your listserv, and you figure it's a Saturday, everybody will show up, it's going to be a ton of fun. The day of the event comes and nobody's there. And then you are sad because you spent a bunch of time planning this event and didn't get the output that you were looking for. So what went wrong in a scenario like this? There's a couple different things. First is timing. You thought that Saturday, 1 p.m., March 11th, that's a great time for people to show up with families. But what you didn't realize is that 1 p.m. is nap time for most younger kids. And so families that have preschoolers and toddlers probably aren't going to show up to a 1 p.m. event. You also scheduled it for March 11th, which happens to be spring break for your school system. And so a lot of those families that have elementary and middle school kids are on vacation that weekend. So they weren't going to come no matter when you scheduled it for. The other thing that went wrong was the cost. You know, $10 for an individual, $30 for a family may seem like a great deal, especially if you have multiple kids. But a lot of families are also having soccer practices, swim lessons, all these different things going on throughout the week that they're already paying for. And so a lot of parents are going to say, is $30 worth it for my family? Probably not. You also didn't consider the family dynamics when you were scheduling an event at a roller rink. Babies can't roller skate, and that means mom can't roller skate either. So that's two people that aren't going to be able to take full advantage of the event. Meanwhile, little Jimmy has soccer practice, so he's not going to be there either. You're left with dad and another kid who may or may not show up, and likely they're probably not going to show up if it's $30 for two people. And the last thing is you didn't ask any parents what sort of activities they would want to do with their kids. And this is the most common mistake that I see a lot of JETAA chapters make is it's the people without kids deciding what events would families want to show up to without actually asking anybody with a family the sorts of events that they would be interested in. So my 4 big tips for when you're planning a family-friendly event. The first biggest one is find some local parents. Hopefully you already know of some JET alumni parents, which is why you're wanting to do more family-friendly events. So I would personally reach out to them and ask them, what sort of events would you be interested in doing? And so our first kind of family-focused event that we did in this area was just a playground meetup where we set a date and a time and a playground and said, come if you want. And we had a great time, a good turnout for that. My other tip is, considering who your target audience is. If a lot of your JET alumni families have babies and toddlers, they're going to be interested in different events from families that have older children. So, you really need to think about what the age range of the kids are that you're trying to attract to your event. The third thing is make it low stakes. If you're planning a weekend glamping bonanza, out in the mountains that's going to cost, $300–400, most families aren't going to do that because camping with kids is a huge pain in the butt. But if you choose something really low stakes, like join us at a playground to have a picnic, then you're going to have a much larger turnout. One of our big annual events is we do a cherry blossom picnic each year, and we have lots of families come to that because all they need is some food and a blanket to show up. And the last thing is to remember that your results may vary. Sometimes you have all the perfect pieces in place, but you're still not going to get the turnout that you were hoping for. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try again. Just kind of learn from, okay, well, why didn't it work the way I thought it would, and reconfigure it for the next time. And just kind of remember that, if you're really persistent with it, you're going to succeed in getting more families to show up. So just, keep on trying. And that's it.
Thanks, Kyle. So I would love to open this up now to conversation and question and answers. If anyone has any ideas or thoughts about any of the topics that we discussed, or you can unmute yourself. I think everyone can talk if you have a microphone. So just feel free, and we'll go from there. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question. This is Brenda. Is it okay? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So I think it's obviously a huge value to have Kyle on a board or alumni from various, sort of a diverse board, because they bring different skills but also different backgrounds. And Kyle, you were saying you have a 4-year-old, so maybe you're more familiar with activities and resources in town for families. What about boards and chapters where it's a younger board? So maybe you don't have people on the board. What are ways that we might be able to pull more volunteers in with organizing events and draw from those resources if they're not part of the board already? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So I am also on a board for a different local nonprofit that the board itself is very small, and so we rely very heavily on volunteers within the organization, and it's really about cultivating those relationships with potential volunteers and being very targeted in who you're recruiting. So, if you know that there's a JET alumni in your area who is not a part of the board but has a family and may be interested in being more involved with the Alumni Association, reaching out to them directly and saying, we'd really love to do something that would welcome JET families. Do you have any ideas? And, see what they throw out there. Say, we're thinking about doing, a picnic, a playground meetup, or whatever, just is any of this resonating with you, and see what kind of feedback you get from those members. And then, just kind of give them the opportunity, like, would you be willing to be the host for this event? And again, I think having low stakes events helps a lot. The playground meetups that we've done, it's literally just looking at the weather report, saying this, next Saturday looks like a good Saturday, picking a date and time and asking a parent, are they willing to, kind of be the host for the meetup, which is a very low stakes entry level way to get involved with the Alumni Association.
That's great, thank you. And that's a good point about asking volunteers to sort of host events, or pulling in more people with organizing, because that happens a lot, but sometimes there's so many JETAA events that are planned by like the social development chair, or professional development chair, and I don't know, it seems like there's already so much going on that in some chapters we haven't pulled from volunteers, so that's also a really good tip. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Hi, this is Kate. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So I actually have a question about trying to engage those geographically detached alumni. I currently live in Pittsburgh, which is a very small chapter, and we want to do a lot of outreach. But one of the recommendations is getting those JETs before they go. What advice do you have on identifying those people?
This is Laurel. I think that being involved with, contacting wherever people are leaving from. So, for example, contacting DC for the people that are, so for Pittsburgh, I know you guys are a subchapter of New York. But I think trying to, if you're able to connect with, say, the New York chapter when they're doing a departure orientation, and I don't know, I mean, you all do not do one locally, is that correct?
Not that I know of.
I'm dovetailing off Kate. This is Smitha Prasad. I'm actually the Pittsburgh subchapter, and so Kate and I are kind of tag teaming here. But yeah, we don't really have enough people to do one. I think we have maybe 1 or 2 local shortlisters each year, but even identifying them is tough. Like, we have a good connection to the University of Pittsburgh, and we do an info session with them every year. And this is me sort of bearing my soul to you all, but we definitely have had at least one person who came to learn about the Alumni Association because of these info sessions. But for us to actually meet enough people to do a pre-departure orientation, half the time we just find out about them through through chance or secondhand. So, and even with talking to New York, it can be tough to, I think they get a spreadsheet, and the chances of them actually having the city listed on there, or maybe even the state listed on there, can be a bit tough too. So it involves a lot of investigation on our part to track anybody down.
So this is Kyle. One recommendation that I have, because we go through this every year as well with the Southeast Atlanta chapter. Atlanta is far away from most of North Carolina, and so for a lot of outgoing North Carolina JETs, it's not feasible for them to go to the pre-departure orientation in Atlanta. And so we have found a way to kind of make everybody happy at the Atlanta consulate, where what I do is not a pre-departure orientation, because they don't want that to happen outside of Atlanta. So we do a pre-departure happy hour, which we schedule after the pre-departure orientation. It usually happens a week or 2 after the stuff in Atlanta, and then the Atlanta consulate emails out the information about the happy hour to all of the Atlanta outgoing JETs, regardless of where they're coming from, saying, oh, if you missed the pre-departure orientation, or you just want to meet other North Carolina JETs, come to this JET Alumni Association happy hour. We schedule it at one of the local breweries, and people show up, and we just let the new JETs ask whatever questions are on their mind. We don't have any sort of formal program for it, and it's worked really, really well. I mean, last year we had 15 people show up. Some of them were alumni and mostly new JETs, and a lot of them actually ended up joining our Alumni Association Facebook page like that night while they were sitting at the happy hour. So we've got a really good response from that.
That's fantastic. Well, how did you even track down the JETs or the shortlisters who were in North Carolina?
So what Atlanta does is they send that happy hour invitation to everyone flying out from Atlanta. So regardless of whether they're North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, or whatever. They just send it to the entire listserv. So I actually have no idea who on that listserv is based in North Carolina, but you know, once they show up for the happy hour, I figure it out. Like nobody's coming from Alabama to a North Carolina happy hour, right?
That's great to know. Thank you.
I guess I was just going to say too, I don't know if there's, you know, the closer we can, you know, we work very closely with the embassy here in DC, but I think sometimes there are things that either the consulates or even the embassy, they haven't necessarily thought about. And so, for example, what Kyle was just speaking of is a great way to try to engage people without stepping on anyone's toes or, you know, their particular event, but also finding a way to reach out to people. So that's really useful.
Can I, this is Brenda again. We had a similar situation. My husband and I are both JET alumni, and we lived in New Zealand for a year and a half. And one thing in moving there, so I was in Boston, JETAA, Chicago, DC, New Zealand, DC, now New York. So I've seen different chapters. But we realized going to New Zealand that there's a really robust JETAA community, as there are in other countries. But we were in a really isolated geographic area, sort of in the South Island. And so we decided to start a subchapter, but we had the same problem where we didn't have lists of people. There's a university, there's professors there that are JET alumni. And so there's a lot of events in Auckland, Wellington, even Christchurch. But starting something in Dunedin, I guess it's just like the networking, like going through, if you find one alum, so it was like a friend of a friend from Shimane, knew somebody else that had like left the same time as her that was a graduate student, and so it's just that sort of organic grassroots approach. So that's kind of how we approached it. But I also realized that using tools like LinkedIn that you might with a job search also works really well with JET, because if you search on LinkedIn or even on Facebook, like I think you can face like randos work at X. And if people put down JET, you can search LinkedIn for like JET and then a city, and you might come up with names, and could always just, you know, add that person or contact that person and say, hey, I noticed you're an alum if you're interested in joining. So we use some of those social tools, but otherwise it was just, you know, almost like the organic networking, sort of just asking people to reach out and spread the word, and having sort of flyers for everything that we did so that they could share it, so it was shareable. And I'm sure you're doing that, so I know, and I've seen the events that you guys have put on, or seen, they come up in my listserv and they look great. So you guys are messaging well, but I don't know if that's helpful, but LinkedIn might be a tool.
Oh, that is great, thank you. And Kate, I didn't mean to cut you off if you had anything else that you wanted to say.
No, this is fantastic advice. Thank you all.
Are there any other questions? Anyone? I was going to look just quickly at the questions that that Rocky Mountain had put out there. Because I think a few of them, you know, I think we've just talked a little bit about the geographically detached jets, but also, you know, finding out what motivates people to stay involved, I think, is a really important. I'm sorry. You know, finding out what motivates some of the older jets to stay involved, and I wanted to find out just from you all, like what have you found that people have told you why they want to stay involved?
You know, what I've seen in our area is it's, you know, a lot of people want to still feel some sort of connection to Japan and their time in Japan, and then especially for ones that, you know, now have kids, they want to introduce their kids to Japanese culture and things like that. But I think the difficulty is when you're relying on the same people year after year after year to serve as board members, you get burnout, right? Because it's a lot to ask. people to be doing that for so many years. And so I think, one thing chapters should really consider is kind of cultivating the future board members, and maybe even going so far as to consider term limits on being a board member to try to facilitate forward movement in what the chapters are doing, and kind of allowing other people to have lower stakes ways to stay involved in the Alumni Association.
That's a really good point. Anyone else?
This is Kate. I was going to say, one reason that I became involved and that I hear other people being involved is those connections. Especially in the U.S., you have a lot of people who move or change careers, and one thing that JETAA has been helpful with is if you move to a new area, you can explore, are there alumni in this area? If you change careers, you can ask alumni, for their insight and advice, and it's helpful.
I think Paige has, well, so this is Smitha, kind of another question based off that. How do you even, I do wonder sometimes if you ask people in general, why are you involved, or what do you want to get out of this group? What kind of, events and activities and info do you want? What are all of your suggestions for not making it so open-ended that people get a little bit deer in headlights over it? Because I'll put the question out there sometimes, and we have a core group of people that, like our subchapter has been around actively since 2009, and it's largely the same people who are happy to stay in touch and do, Japan-related events. Like we had a Nabe party last night, but to elicit more, guided and specific insights can be a little bit tough. And I don't mean to dominate all of this by sort of venting, everything that I'm going through. So,
does anyone have any advice for Smitha?
I mean, I think part of it is you should kind of look at, what is your current bandwidth? Because I do agree, if you give people a blank canvas, they'll either freeze up and suggest nothing at all, or they'll go the exact opposite direction and suggest things that are way outside of the realm of what you can accomplish logistically, right? And so, one of the things that I do in my professional life, because I work with a lot of students and go through this with them, is when we're designing exit surveys or satisfaction surveys after a workshop or whatever, is we'll ask, very pointed questions like, are you interested in these topics, and give them a drop-down list and maybe an option to put an other and write an other in, or are you interested in these sorts of events? So I think a little bit of it is brainstorming, what do you guys actually have the capacity to do, and kind of guide the discussion that way.
Thanks, Kyle. That sounds, I think that the other thing that I've found is, with USJETAA, I've had the opportunity to go to a bunch of the national conferences, so I've met representatives from each chapter, but I do think that I've found that sometimes the leadership in the chapters aren't necessarily able to get the information out to their respective members, and I think that finding a way for us to encourage alumni, I do think that Facebook has been really good, actually, because it does reach people beyond, those who are officers in a chapter, but, making, I think, a more concerted effort to reach out to the random jet that isn't necessarily automatically involved. So did everyone notice, did you see Paige's comment to the side? Her microphone isn't working. But she, getting to know the importance of getting to know your members and potential members and keeping at it. And I think that that's a really good point. And I think also not being discouraged when you have an event that no one comes to. Sometimes it's just really bad timing. And, you know, just because you didn't get a great big group for one event doesn't mean that that's going to be the case in the future, but trying to figure out why that was the case. And if you discovered that it is because it was a timing event or there was a conflict, then there's always hope. So are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, to that point of like bad timing, one of the things that I also recommend is kind of, you know, most urban areas have event calendars that you can search online, and you know, the school board has their school calendar for the year, whatnot, and you take a look at those before you actually schedule an event, or even just go on Facebook and see what upcoming events are in your area before deciding on a date. Because if you schedule it when 10, 15 other things are going on in your area that may be of interest to JET alumni, then, I mean, that's a lot of competition that you're having to deal with.
That's true. And actually, on top of that, I think if you know, learning to partner with different organizations. I know a lot of chapters already do that, but in areas where perhaps there isn't a chapter, but there's a sister city, and encouraging them to let you co-sponsor an event and hopefully bring in additional alumni that way. Sometimes that attracts sort of new members and people that really weren't aware of the organization.
This is Monica Yuki from the New York chapter. I just wanted to thank Laurel and Kyle for these great presentations, and also mention that Smitha and Kate, the fact that you guys are even on this call is so awesome. You guys do such a great job in the Pittsburgh chapter. How did you even know this webinar was happening? Because for information to get spread out to JETs who are not near a main chapter, I feel that sometimes they don't get information, and the fact that you're both on this call is so great. And I think we need to be better educated, like main chapters, how information can be disseminated out to subchapters and even to JETs who are not even knowledgeable about a subchapter that's near them. If anyone on this call has some ideas on how to keep spreading this information better, besides just Facebook and what we've been trying doing, or how did you guys know about the call?
Hi, Monica. This is Kate. I went to the Plus 10 event that DC held a couple weeks ago. I just moved to Pittsburgh from the DC area, and so keeping contact with those connections has helped me, because I find out about things by going to these events, and then I can share it with others. But also keeping a group of JET connections that you have. Brenda and I were both in Hyogo at the same time in 2006. So every now and then we'll call each other to find out what is going on. And that's how I also hear about new things, and she can hear about things that we're doing. So I think keeping those connections alive and active is one way to kind of do outreach to smaller groups.
Well, I'll build off that and say, I mean, it's fantastic that Kate is here. Like, I already feel so much more connected because she has such a strong connection to the DC chapter and she works in the JET office there. But, and I also love, I mean, to speak positively, I mean, I love that USJETAA is becoming, you know, a thing, because, I mean, we are, like, DC is 4 hours away, New York is 7, Toronto is 5. You know, it's tough for us to get to those cities, but this is the beauty of the internet, right? If there is a way to, I mean, it could even be a mailing list to, you know, identified chapters and subchapters, you know, get the officers involved and keep them in the loop or something like that. So a more concerted effort to, you know, track down and engage with leadership and all the chapters you can find and encourage them to pass it on to any groups that, you know, that are a little bit harder to find out about at the top level. So that could be something.
That's really helpful, because I push out email blasts to chapter leaders, and I'm not sure if it's getting passed on to to their subchapters or to their members. So I guess on my end, as from the country rep point of view, just keep pushing out as much information and encouraging them to share it more, just to be able to cast our net wider.
Yeah, and just from the USJETAA point, it's really, trying to reach as many people as possible. And I've been so impressed with, like, when we've put out surveys about, like, the upcoming National All Alumni Reunion, I had almost 400 people respond to that, and they were from all over the place. And so I'm hoping that we can, encourage people. I do think the person-to-person connection is huge, and I think that, a friend calling me and telling me they're going to do something or get involved in something is going to have so much more weight than any, like, random email. But I do think that there really are so many different ways to get involved. And I was at the lunch that Kate mentioned, the 10+ lunch, and it was such an easy thing. And I have lived in DC for 18 years, and I didn't know half of the people there, and they had all, like, they live in DC and they were on JET in the 90s. And so I was so surprised to, not that I think I know everyone, but I thought I knew a lot more people in DC. But so it's an interesting thing that even in cities, but I know, like, for example, in Pittsburgh, which I'm really excited that USJETAA is going to be able to involve them in our mentorship project. There's so many universities there, and so I just have to believe that there are hidden JET alumni throughout the system that they just haven't had the right personal connection, and so they just haven't they just don't know what's out there. But hopefully that's the case in all of these different cities around the country, because I always seem to be running into them. So fingers are crossed.
So I think it's for me to say so. I noticed that there are a few other people on the call that haven't, really jumped in. And again, I feel bad because this has suddenly become very Pittsburgh-centric. But if anyone else has, thoughts about kind of the experiences you have, I'm really curious as to what chapters you're in. If you're also in sub-chapters, like I know that Paige just posted a comment, which sounds like she's also in a far-flung chapter. So, how are things going for everybody else?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know if you guys noticed. So Paige is asking, do our friends in Pittsburgh or other areas have ideas how to reach the far-flung alum to let them know about plans for the alumni reunion this summer? As you guys may or may not know, we are planning this all alumni reunion in celebration of the 30th anniversary of JET. And it'll be the first weekend in August. We are nailing it down. This coming weekend, we have another meeting with the committee. But the idea is to really try to bring in, alumni from as many different places as we can, and to really re-engage the network. So I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts about her question or any ideas?
This is Kate. What I have done to let people know is I use Facebook a lot, and I still have a lot of my connections from my time on JET who were Facebook friends. They're all, have returned to their home countries or in the U.S., and just putting it out there like, hey, is anyone coming to the reunion? The word of mouth seems to do a really good job of just disseminating. The biggest issue, though, is keeping it updated. So first, we knew that the 30th anniversary reunion, that was an idea. So letting people know, hey, this is an idea that's going out. But now that it's getting down to the details with the dates, putting that information back out there, having people make those connections, reaching out to their friends and colleagues and asking, are you going? It also might be helpful to find people who can provide the information in different forms. I'm going to NAFSA this year, which is one of the largest international ed conferences in the country, and I always run into JETs that I don't know there. And so one thing that I can do that's small is just ask them, are you going to the reunion? Because they may or may not know about it.
And I just to chime in too, I do social media marketing as part of my job, and I like to call it massaged word of mouth, where if we have an event or something that we really want to get the word out, but we want it to be in a more authentic way, is I will actually target colleagues and say, hey, can you share this event on your Facebook wall? You know, say that you're so excited to go to it and let it spread that way, and that is really effective. And another thing you may want to consider too is once you have the event live on Facebook is paying to sponsor that post. I've used that in very targeted settings for events that we do here on campus, and you can get a lot of impact if you play with the sponsorship posts.
Okay, that's very helpful. We should just a heads up to you guys. We will have the date and everything sort of at least an initial announcement by the end of this month, if not sooner. The committee, just the initial steering committee, is meeting again on the 12th, so this coming Sunday. And we've just been wary of putting anything out there until our name has been on a contract. But then once we're tied in, we have no choice, so we'll have to move forward. And I look forward to sharing that information with everyone. Unless there are any other questions, I'm just going to ask one last time, and that we're hitting up against our hour. And I don't want to keep everyone too long. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank everyone for calling in and joining us. Kyle, thank you so much for your input. I really do appreciate it, and it's really helpful just to start thinking about these things. What's nice is we'll be able to put this presentation online, and I had a number of people on Facebook saying that they were very anxious to listen to it, so that's great. Also, I want to thank both Jessica Livingston and Adam Lisman for coming up with their great PowerPoint. I hope I did it justice going through it. So, but thank you all. This is a new thing, but I'm excited to use it, and I think if there are any chapters that would like to, if you have any ideas for programs to reach out to the rest of the JETAA community and network, please let me know, because I'm more than happy to have you use this tool if you think it's helpful. And I think that's it. Our next webinar, we have 2 more in this inaugural series. Our next one is going to be on Wednesday, and it is on, effective program implementation. I can't find my piece of paper, and I wanted to find the exact title. And then on Monday, we will be doing, the following Monday, we will be doing it on 501c3, like gaining nonprofit status. And actually, Brenda is going to be one of the speakers, along with Walter Derricks, who is a lawyer here in Washington, D.C. that has helped USJETAA. Wednesday, actually, Monica Yuki is going to be one of the presenters, talking about program implementation, along with Jessica from JETAA DC, and then Mark Frey from Northern California. So I hope you all, if you have the time, if you have a long lunch break and you can join us, please do, and please spread the message as well. We'd love to have as much input. I think we all gain from sharing ideas and information. So anyway, thank you all very much.
Thanks.